Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to let a few, well, see if we get some more people on. We've got 75 folks now, and I think nearly 200 registered. So if you don't mind waiting a few more minutes, and then we'll get started. So just quickly before we go to my presentation, so waste reduction and why it matters. I had given this presentation back in June to a small subset of my district. So I had really kind of focused on those communities. But today's presentation has been updated. So it is all Massachusetts local. So no question is, every question is a smart question. Let's just start with that. All right, so can we start with the first slide, Todd? Great. So for those of you, you should see those gray lines if you want to change that. So right now, I want each of us to think about our stuff. And in particular, one item we might use every day, and ask yourself the following questions. Where did I purchase it? How did I purchase it? Did I go to a store or did I purchase it online? Where was it made? What is it made of? And just as important, how is it packaged? Although there are a lot of inputs into that product that we think we have no control over, what we purchase and consume matters. Each of us ultimately decides what we want to consume and what we throw away, and all of our stuff has a carbon footprint. So we're going to start this off by asking you a question. So Todd, would you set the poll? And we're anxious to hear who has tuned in today and where you are from. Okay, so let's see, Todd. I think we might be ready to close the poll and you share the results. Okay, north of Boston. So a lot of my folks, but that would also include Julia Green's Northeast District 3, Metro Boston. This is great. Central, Western Mass. Everybody's represented, including somebody from another state. Next slide, Todd. Oh, okay, next slide. So you're looking at a large, well, you're looking at an old rear load packer truck. And it's a snapshot, it's a dissected truck, which is a snapshot of what we were throwing away in 2010. In 2010, we started doing waste characterization studies at 6 of our disposal facilities. So you're looking at the percentages that were true in 2010. These numbers have changed. Actually, let's go to the next slide. And this brings us up to 2019. And we're looking at a bar graph. I'm just pretty sentimental about that trash truck, I guess. So looking at this bar graph, you can see that organics material represents 28% of what we are throwing away. Okay, I want to be clear. This is going into our trash. The next box over is paper, and that's represented by 21%. And then I'm going to go down to where the purple box where it says metals, and it says 42%. So those three materials represent 53% or 53.4% of what we dispose of in Massachusetts that could have been easily recycled or composted. So I would imagine at this point you're saying, well, why didn't she say anything about plastics? Because plastics is 16% of what we throw away in Massachusetts. And yes, it is true, but there are many other plastics besides those that are acceptable in our municipal recycling programs that are not acceptable. So these would be composite plastic, commercial plastic, film plastic, plastic bags, any plastic film, styrofoam. These are all not acceptable in our recycling program. We do, we'll talk about contamination in our recycling programs, and so we'll see the reverse of that shortly on. Next slide, Todd. Okay, poll question number 2. So can you post the poll, Todd? Okay, where does our trash go? So this question is asking, you know, where does the state of Massachusetts trash go? All of these, you know, the entire state. And we can see by a landslide that most of you chose all of the above, and you would be correct. Next slide, Todd. So the answer is all of the above. There are 7 municipal waste combustors, also known as waste to energy facilities, also known as incinerators, that are located in Massachusetts. There are 6 landfills that are currently open. Trash is exported either by truck or rail to New Hampshire, New York, and Ohio. Most of our waste is combusted or burned here in Massachusetts, not landfilled, as many people think. Next slide, Todd. Okay, this is a reality check. We have a trash disposal capacity shortage in Massachusetts. 4 Massachusetts landfills have closed in the last 2 years. 5 of the 6 remaining landfills will be at capacity and closed by 2031. There are 7 municipal waste combustors, all operating at capacity now. There is no new in-state solid waste disposal capacity in the pipeline. Price for trash disposal is going up in many parts of the state. Next slide, please, Todd. So this is our third question. If you can set the poll, Todd. Okay. Which of the following items are banned from landfills and municipal waste combustors in Massachusetts? So it's multiple choice. So you can select as many as you want. Okay, Todd, I think we can close the poll. And here are the results. Okay, so, all right, looks like the vast majority think that televisions and refrigerators are banned from disposal. A great number of you think all of the above. Some of you think none of the above, glass containers, cardboard, not so many. All right, so let's click out of that. And Todd, if you would go to the next screen, there are 13 materials currently banned from disposal in Massachusetts. So here are the ones that you're most likely to have in your homes. Cathode ray tubes, televisions, right? Monitors and laptops, glass and metal containers, leaves and yard waste, recyclable paper, cardboard and paperboard, single resin narrow neck plastic containers. So think plastic bottles, jars, and jugs. Think about the shape. And white goods. Textiles and mattresses are anticipated to be added to the list. So this is just, as I say, this is also on the list is some other things like asphalt, brick, and concrete, gypsum, commercial food material, more than a ton a week, ferrous and non-ferrous metals, lead acid batteries, your car batteries, recyclable paper, which we said, tires and landfills. So there's a very long list, and that link will be in the links document that we're going to provide to you. Why do we have waste bans, you might be asking? Okay, well, the waste bans are designed to conserve capacity at existing disposal facilities and minimize the need for new disposal construction, which is what we've just been talking about. We have a lack of capacity. We don't have new facilities come online. This is what the waste bans are designed to do, because there are better things to do with these items that have been banned. And by having the waste bans, we're providing recycling markets with large volumes of material on a consistent basis. And it helps promote business and residential recycling efforts, and also keeps toxic substances or materials from adversely affecting our environment when landfilled or combusted. Next slide, please, Todd. So waste management hierarchy, I suspect all of you have seen something like this, or at least at minimum have heard about the 3 R's, the reduce, reuse, recycle. If you were to Google this, you would probably see hundreds of images of what this looks like. I particularly like this one because I think it most closely reflects Massachusetts waste hierarchy. So at the top, which is the best to the worst, right, is to eliminate waste, followed by reduce, followed by reuse, and then recycle, and then energy recovery, which would be if waste goes to a municipal waste combustor or waste to energy facility, that trash is turned into steam, then that is electricity. And then in Massachusetts, landfill last. So that's it. But as you look at these, right, if you look at eliminate, reduce, reuse, recycle, I bet what other words can you think of? And if you wouldn't mind, enter them into the chat. We'd like to know what words you use. Next slide, Todd. Refuse, great one. Rot, another great one. Repurpose, all more R's. This is awesome. Repurpose, great. Rethink, great. Upcycle, I missed one. Refuse, repurpose, refill, awesome. These are great. All right, so repair, another great one. Just say so. Upcycle, I love it. All right, so this is responsibility, great. These are great. How about we go to the last question, the last poll. So Todd, can you set that up? All right, so do you know that MassDEP puts out a solid waste master plan every 10 years? Oh, it's interesting watching this poll. Okay, Todd, can you close the poll and share the results? All right, so wow, so this is impressive that 40% of you know that, let's just, 40% say yes, 37% say no, and 23% say what is a solid waste master plan. So let me just say this to all of you that might get this question wrong. I'm so glad you're attending this presentation. All right, so let's close this out. And Todd, if you would go to the next slide. Yes, we have a plan. In fact, MassDEP has produced a solid waste master plan every 10 years, starting from 1990. So MassDEP's draft 2030 solid waste master plan is currently out for public comment. And the deadline to comment is December 4th, so it's coming up. So what are the main goals? The main goals are, and they are aggressive, 30% reduction in waste disposal by 2030 and 90% reduction by 2050, using 2018 tonnage as a baseline. So on this one point, I just want to say we have made progress. This is down 14% from 2008, despite a 16% in gross state product and an increase in population. So that's the big goal right there. Then we've got reduce the toxicity of the waste stream, implement producer responsibility for targeted materials, and it also envisions a zero waste future with increased source reduction, reuse, and donation. So I think I just saw somebody, a comment in there. So the top items for diversion, the lead is food material. So the DP has targeted 570,000 tons that they are hoping to get out of the waste stream, and that this would be represented by food material. Cardboard is next with 220,000 tons. Untreated wood, textiles, bulky material. A bulky material would be best exemplified by a mattress. And as we've already said, it's one of these things that one of the items that we are targeting to ban from the waste stream. We also want to reduce out and phase out materials that are difficult to manage, like single-use plastics. We also want better design for our products and for their packaging. And we need to be making better purchasing decisions. And we also want to increase reuse and donation opportunities and develop local markets for recycling and reuse markets. Next slide, please, Todd. Okay, this is a very important slide. Materials management and climate change, and why this is so important. So I don't know if I have a rectangular box on my screen. I don't know if others do, but I want you to look at, are people seeing my presentation? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Todd. He's the Wizard of Oz of this particular Zoom meeting. So looking at the pie chart and looking at the bracketed slices that represent materials management policies, you'll see that the provision of goods contributes 29% to our greenhouse gas emissions. And the provision of food is represented by 13%. So materials management contributes 42% to our greenhouse gas emissions, also known as our consumption-based emission. So what does this have to do with my waste, right? So materials management refers to how we manage material resources as they flow through the economy, from extraction or harvest of materials and food, refining in the case of plastics, production of transport, provision of service, and preferably new life or end of life management. Where we can play a role is how we purchase things, right? Where this is going to be a theme that gets repeated throughout this presentation. We can reuse our stuff. We can recycle it if we can't reuse it, compost, or lastly, dispose of it. Next slide, please, Todd. So this slide was taken from the March 2020 issue of National Geographic. The entire issue was devoted to the topic of trash. It was called The End of Trash. And if you get a chance to read it, and I hope you do, there is an X-ray of the global economy. And I've extracted the text from that and the bar chart. Maybe it just be easier for you to look at the bar chart while I read you what National Geographic reports. That 93 billion with a B tons of resources were extracted from the earth in 2015. 67.4 billion tons, or 2/3, are wasted. 23.7 billion tons become buildings, cars, and other long-lasting durable goods. Only 9.3 billion tons, less than 10%, are reused resources. Next slide, please, Todd. Okay, some good news. Massachusetts communities are leaders in waste reduction. Currently, there are 155 communities with pay-as-you-throw. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, pay-as-you-throw is a system whereby the trash generator pays for what they throw away, thereby incentivizing them to rethink what they purchase and what they ultimately throw away. Of these 155 communities, 95 are drop-off and 70 are curbside. But curbside are gaining in their numbers, so that's good news. In the last 5 years, 15 communities have adopted pay-as-you-throw. And MassDEP calls pay-as-you-throw the most effective tool in reducing municipal waste. It also hits on the 3 E's. And this is particularly important, I think, for municipal programs. It's fair, so that's not an E. It's equitable. It's also fair. So if your neighbor puts out 5 bags and you put out 1, why should you be paying for those 4 additional bags? So it hits on the equity issue. It's also economically sound for a community. It's going to reduce their costs. This is really important. And most importantly, or maybe not, depending on who you're talking to, it's good for the environment. We're talking about waste reduction. We just heard why this is so important. And pay-as-you-throw helps get us there. Next slide, please, Todd. All right, so I'm going to give you all a few minutes just to find your community on this map. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to say MassDEP asks all Massachusetts communities to fill out a solid waste and recycling survey annually. We ask you a lot of different things, but we do ask what your trash tonnage is, and we do ask how many households your municipal program serves. And from that, we are able to determine for every community that reports their trash pounds per household. And so looking at this map, the darker the green is the less pounds per household in that community. And the redder means more trash pounds per household. But so what's significant about this is that the statewide average, again, based on communities reporting, statewide average is 1,360 pounds, 363 pounds, trash pounds per household. For non-pay-as-you-throw communities, it's 1,646 pounds per household. Compared to the average for pay-as-you-throw communities, it's 1,086 pounds per household. That's nearly 600 pounds less when compared to non-pay-as-you-throw communities. So this is why this is one of the things that your MAC, all the MACs are touting in the MassDEP touts. As I said in the previous slide, MassDEP considers this the most effective way to reduce solid waste reduction. Well, the most way to reduce solid waste. Next slide, please. So I realized this morning, actually, I should have changed this to read, how can we eliminate waste? It means the same thing, but let's be consistent with our verbiage, right? How can we eliminate waste? And one of the more recent things that the DEP has done is that they have created a reduce and reuse work group. And they're doing some really great work. And I would encourage any of you that are interested in getting involved with providing input on source reduction, reuse, and repair strategy in Massachusetts, and also keeping informed of policy and program developments, that you attend. They have a monthly meeting. As I said, anybody can join. The next one is December 16th. It's monthly, and it usually runs on a Wednesday, 10 to noon. And that link will also be in the chat. I don't want to overkill you with links, but I also want to provide you with lots of resources. Next slide, please, Todd. So I'm wondering, Library of Things or Library of Tools, do you know if your community has one? So when last reported, we know that there are 30. but we know that there are a lot more. So I would encourage all of you, if you don't know, check with your library. Hopefully they have one, and then check something out. And then if they don't, say, well, have you thought about this? And the libraries didn't come to this via waste reduction. That's where I come from, right? And probably all of you. But by creating these library of things and library of tools, they have made themselves more meaningful than they already are. My office before COVID hit was in the Beverly Public Library, and every day there are swarms of people using all the resources in the library. And you know, who better than a library, right? They have been the mainstay of reusing and sharing really more than a century. Next slide, please, Todd. Swap shops. Okay, I imagine many of you live in communities that have swap shops. But if you don't, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive here. So we are looking actually on the left-hand side. We're looking at a picture of the Needham swap shop. And this picture was taken before COVID because regretfully, many of the municipal swap shops have closed because my town has a swap shop. Actually, I live in Rockport. So you're looking at a picture of Rockport's furniture container. And this shot was taken during COVID. And we have a swap shop, which is very small, that can take, you know, small toys and small household goods, but all the furniture would be outside. So we were fortunate several years ago when this was offered that we were able to get a grant to house all those larger items so that they are not impacted by the weather. We also have a book barn, as I know others do as well. But these are, they've been forced in many cases to shut down because they are gathering places, right? People hang out, they want to see what's coming in or see what, you know, what I can get today, or they're dropping off. So hopefully we're going to return to health, number one, and that all our swap shops and furniture and book barns and all these are open again so the public can use them. Next slide, please, Todd. Okay, reuse, repair. Repair events and fix-it clinics. These are a great way to reduce waste. These are community repair events that bring neighbors together to reduce waste, learn repair skills, and keep the things we love and value in good shape for years to come. And so this has been another casualty of COVID. But the good news is that there have been a number of virtual repair clinics. And so instead of bringing your broken toaster in and having somebody help you or do it for you, that you can now sign into a virtual clinic and you'll have the repair technician walk you through repairing your item. So all is not lost. And I would also say for any of you that are interested in learning about repair and reuse clinics locally, there's a great website, Bolton Local, that will be shared as well as part of this presentation. It's great stuff. And I saw, you know, refillable containers. We talked about, you know, different words. Refill was definitely one of those verbs that came up. And this is a picture of the Green Road Refill. This is a woman down on the South Shore who has a mobile store and will refill your refillable container. And she has a schedule. If you go to her website, you can look to see where she is on what particular day. And then of course the mainstay. I mean, I hope that we're all using our own refillable mug or water bottle and reusable bags, right? Important, very important. Next slide, Todd. Excuse, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Oh. Sharing giving platforms. I suspect many of you are familiar with FreeCycle, which has been around for a long time, and Buy Nothing, which has been around for a few years, but not as long as FreeCycle. But both of these hyper local giving and getting platforms, they're all about reuse and keeping good stuff out of the trash. I think they're both using Facebook as their platform. And I would, also say that I know many communities actually have their own kind of giving, sharing platform. We have one that's called Rockport Stuff. Actually, it's more than just things, but if people have something, they can post it there. They could sell it there. They could give it away. You can think of Craigslist has a free section. Habitat for Humanity. There are lots of opportunities for people to investigate. Next slide, please. So what else? What else can we do to reduce our waste? We have hand-me-downs. I'm the youngest of 4, so I really know what those are about. I learned to ride on a boy's bicycle at the age of 5. I don't think I wore their underwear, thankfully, but that was too much information. Yard sales, thrift stores, consignment shops, charitable donations. And I can see just by the chat that that you're all offering a lot of other opportunities to reduce your waste. Next slide, please, Todd. Oh, that was eliminate waste. Sorry. Now we're getting into reduce your waste. All right. So, Todd, you can go to the next slide. So at the top, right, we talked about this. What's the top target item? And it is food waste. 21.5% of what we throw away in Massachusetts is food waste. More startling is that 1 million people in Massachusetts are food insecure, and that has gone up during COVID. According to the National Resource Defense Council, up to 40% of the food in the United States is never eaten. So that 40% would represent food that is grown at farms and never gets eaten, right? So there are a lot of stakeholders when we talk about food waste, just not you and I, the food consumer, as it were. But here is what we can do. We're talking today about what we can do, right? So only buy what you need. So plan, use up what you have, improve your cooking skills. That would be a directive to me. Modify recipes to use up leftovers, store properly, donate. All right, so feed people, feed animals, or feed the soil by composting. In fact, food waste diversion stores carbon. Next slide, please, Todd. Okay. Food waste diversion reduces greenhouse gases. Food waste diversion is happening all over Massachusetts, from backyard composting to municipal drop-off. With more industrial composting facilities and anaerobic digesters, it is becoming easier to reduce the amount of food we waste here in Massachusetts. In fact, we have 26 composting facilities. We have 9 anaerobic digesters. We have 6 farms that take food waste for animal feed. And we have 26 farms that accept food waste for animal feed and to compost. So next slide, please, Todd. Clothing and textiles. This was another target item. It is a target item in the solid waste master plan. It's 6% of what we throw away in Massachusetts. It can be reused. So what can be reused or recycled? Any clothing, household textile, or commercial linen textile, if it is dry and has no odor. Stained, torn, overly worn, or out of date is fine. How is it used? 45% is reused as apparel, 30% is cut into wiping rags or polishing cloths that are used in commercial and industrial settings. 20% is reprocessed into its basic fiber content to create furniture stuffing, upholstery, home insulation, automobile soundproofing, carpet padding, building materials, and various other products. Only 5% is unusable. Wet or mildewed material, or material that has been, or clothing that has been used with a solvent type liquid like gasoline or goof off, cannot be reused or recycled. And at the bottom of your screen, the source for a lot of great information is SMART. It stands for Secondary Market and Recycling Textiles. There's a wealth of information there. Again, these links are all being provided to you. Next slide, please, Todd. Recycling, okay? Despite what you may have read or what you have heard, recycling is not broken, but it is contaminated. Contaminated rates vary by community. Some have really low contamination rates. Others have really high contamination rates, but it's a problem in every Massachusetts community. Contaminants increase processing costs. They decrease market value, which results in higher costs to municipalities. They endanger workers. So things like plastic bags or things that we fondly call tanglers, like VHS tape or hoses or strapping, get caught up in these screens. And at least 1 hour per shift, a human being has to climb onto these screens with a box cutter and cut them off. Scary. Contaminants are the controllable part of the equation. So we have 8 material recycling facilities in Massachusetts. They are fondly known as MRFs, M-R-F-S. Recycling contamination, as I said, is a huge problem, with one MRF reporting contamination between 20 and 30%. Statewide, it is more like 15%. As many of you know, China has effectively closed its doors to our recyclables, including our unacceptable recyclables, because China was very, very forgiving. Our recycling markets have been under duress since 2018, but new domestic and North American recycling capacity is coming online, and they are not as forgiving. So we need to get this right. So I want to, let's look at the picture, and I don't remember which MRF this is, but you can see one of the sorters is holding up a basketball hoop. So Todd, if you will, let's go to the next screen to talk about what MassDEP is doing and find out why that recycling hoop is not recyclable. All right, so in response to China closing its doors and recycling processing costs skyrocketing and contamination extremely high. We started out, I think, at about 25%, as you just heard me say. The state average is about 15%. So in response to that, DEP got together with all of the 8 MRFs to collaborate and agree on a list of what is recyclable in Massachusetts. So before this, you could go from abutting communities with the same hauler that brought it to the same MRF, and they had different instructions on what is and what is not recyclable. So Recycle Smart takes care of that. We have this great website. It's www.recyclesmartma.org. You see it there. You'll get the link. And we got this catchy slogan, do your part, recycle smart. But more than that, it's much more than that, right? We have quick answers to recycling questions. So if you want to know if that recycling hoop or why it isn't recyclable, if you put it in, it's probably going to tell you to check sporting equipment, because we have this terrific search engine that has over 400 items. Sorry, I'm jumping around. It's called the Recyclopedia. If you plug in the basketball hoop, it's going to probably do a redirect to sports equipment, and it will give you some other options for that. You probably could donate that. In the case of that basketball hoop, if you live in a town that has a scrap metal container, you should be able to recycle it there, but not in your curbside bin or in your traditional curbside recyclable collection. And let's get to the next slide, Todd, so we can talk about this some more. So this is the Smart Recycling Guide. And in addition to encouraging you to go to that site, I would encourage you to go to your own municipal website and see if there isn't a link to Recycle Smart there. And in fact, if there isn't even the Recyclopedia embedded on your website, so you don't even have to go any further. You can just put in plastic bags, and it's going to tell you no plastic bags, but that you could bring it back to retailers that accept plastic bags for recycling. But this is the holy grail of Recycle Smart, right? The campaign is heavy on pictures and less text and no numbers when it comes to plastic. So across the top, we have the 4 categories. We have metal containers, right? Food and beverage containers. Please empty and rinse. You don't have to scrub, but please empty and rinse. Plastic, bottles, jars, jugs, tubs. Repeat again, bottles, jars, jugs, tubs. And we say, and put the caps back on. The caps are made of polypropylene, which there is a market for them, but if they are put in loose, they will get trashed because they're too small. They will fall down beneath the screens, and this way they stay on the container. They'll get into the container bales. They'll get to the recycling, the plastics recycling facility, and it will all get recycled. Bottles and jars, again, empty and rinse. Paper and cardboard. We want your cardboard. Hear that loud and clear. If any of you are, if all of us are, right, getting things delivered to our homes, they're coming in cardboard boxes, please, please, please put that in your recycling. And then at the bottom, you'll see the 5 major things that we don't want to see in your recycling. We don't want to see plastic bags, any plastic film. We don't want to see your recyclables in plastic bags, even if you have gone to the grocery store and they have told you to buy this bag to put your recyclables in. There are a couple of exceptions. I think I know of one exception. There may be 2, the North End, because the population density is so high, they do pick up recycling in plastic bags. And there may be another place, if somebody knows, please post it in the chat. But for the rest of us, no plastic bags in your recycling. And we don't want any, and no recycling in plastic bags. And you might check your own website. Some communities might be also saying no paper bags with recyclables. It might vary by your community. Check that out. There are some that don't want any recyclables in single stream collections. Let me be clear, in single stream collections, if you're a dual stream community and you put your paper into a paper bag, your newspapers, your magazines, that should be fine. But in single stream, the challenge is they don't know what's at the bottom of those bags. So we don't want any food. We don't want any food in containers. We don't want any food. So it's going back to that empty and rinse, right? We don't want clothing and linens. And we just heard a good reason why they shouldn't go in there, right? They're highly reusable and recyclable. And as I've already talked about, we do not want anything that could tangle to get on these star screens. So we are really focused on pictures, not words or numbers, empty and clean, and that we're focusing on the top 5 contaminants. Next slide, please. Okay, single-use plastic. So the comic, You see 2 plastic cups. They've been buried in a landfill and they're chatting to one another, reminiscing about that one day 400 years ago when somebody purchased them, and you know, the good old days, as it were. Well, fortunately, Massachusetts communities are standing up to single-use plastics. We have 139 local plastic bag bans passed, and the numbers are increasing. There are 47 expanded polystyrene, AKA styrofoam, have been passed and are also growing. Many municipalities have also passed and/or are considering banning straws, stirrers, hot stoppers, water bottles, and takeout containers. If your community is thinking about doing this, or you want to learn more about this, I would strongly encourage you to go to massgreen.org. It's a repository of all the information any community would need to pass a bag ban, including legislation of other communities and helpful tips. It is just a gold mine for information. Okay. Yeah, and you think of single-use plastics, think about coffee cups. They're neither recyclable or compostable at that time. We are talking about a lot of waste, and regrettably, we've seen a lot more because of COVID and the increase of takeout containers. So if you go to a restaurant regularly and they're serving your takeout in styrofoam, let your voice be heard. I think they need to hear from us that we do not want styrofoam. We don't want black plastic, which is not recyclable. Use your voice. It matters. Next slide, please. Extended producer responsibility. So looking at this great graphic, right? We'll start at the top, and we're looking at, right, the circular model versus the linear economy model, right? So we start with the product design, okay? Then we source the materials to make the product. Then we produce the product, or the manufacturers produce the product. That's what I said. So product design, material sourcing, production, that's all on the manufacturer, right? Then we are going to use the product, right? We're going to buy it, we're going to use it. Then it's going to be collected, right? And in an extended producer responsibility model, it's going to get recycled and it's going to go back into the product design. So extended producer responsibility, also known as product stewardship, is a waste reduction strategy. By shifting costs and responsibilities of product discards to producers and others who directly benefit, EPR provides an incentive to eliminate waste and pollution through product design changes and shift end-of-life financial responsibility upstream to the producers, to the manufacturers, and away from taxpayers, consumers, public sector, right? This would be a game changer. Next slide, please. Here are some EPR bills in Massachusetts you may want to follow or support. The first one, the mattress study bill, it's supported by the mattress industry and has been passed by Connecticut and Rhode Island. The mattress study bill is now at the end of its second session. All it asks for is a mattress study commission to be established to investigate options for managing mattresses. The Industry Trade Association, the International Sleep Products Association supports producer responsibility legislation. It has been stuck in the Senate rules and is about to run out of time. Thankfully, State Senator Ed Kennedy, representing First Middlesex Lowell, has just announced that he will be filing a mattress EPR bill modeled after Connecticut's program. A draft bill is not yet available. And the next one on the list is House 796 for paint. This is supported by the paint industry and passed by every New England state except for Massachusetts and New Hampshire. You know, and the paint care bill is another no-brainer that is supported by the paint industry. Massachusetts communities spend thousands of dollars annually to manage waste paint. And in most cases, this does not include latex paint, which this bill does. The District of Columbia and 10 other states have passed. And like I said, every New England state has passed except for Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Again, it's a no-brainer. All right, House 771 with the original draft for plastic bag legislation. This legislation filed by Representative Lori Ehrlich and Senator Jamie Eldridge would ban plastic bags statewide. This has been languishing for more than a decade. It's been updated and I would say improved, but we can't seem to get this horse out of the barn. Also, Representative Marjorie Decker and Senator Mike Barrett have filed bills to ban EPS, expanded polystyrene. So that's really great. And then on nationally, there's the Break Free from Plastics Act, which is sponsored by Senator Udall and Congressman Lowenthal. I think it's Utah and California, respectively, I think. Next slide, please, Todd. Okay, we can do this. We do not need more disposal capacity in Massachusetts. We need to shift from our mostly a linear economy, take, make, dispose, to a circular economy in the United States and around the world. A circular economy is focused on eliminating waste and eliminating the continual depletion of resources. The circular model is a restorative model that employs reuse, sharing, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling to create a closed loop, a circular system, minimizing the use of resource inputs and the creation of waste, pollution, and carbon emissions. So before we go to the next slide, I want to just go back to the first slide. I don't want you to literally go back, Todd, but I want us all to think about, you know, the question that I posed at the beginning, right? It's like, what are the things that we use every day, right? And what are the things that we can live without, or what can we change so that it's not waste? And I'm going to start with my own little confession here, and I'm still working on this one. Actually, I'm really more working on my husband than myself, but it's saran wrap. He is in love with saran wrap. I have purchased those wax cloths, but that's really hard, and sandwich bags. So that's really one of the big things that we're working on in my house. And I would love for you in the next few minutes to share what you're doing so we can all learn from one another. That would be great. Okay, great. Somebody's giving me some help already. I appreciate this. All right, so I think, so for the next slide, perhaps Pete Seeger said it best. So Todd, if you can go to that. If it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted, then it should be restricted, redesigned, or removed from production. Thank you so much for listening in today. I thank you so much. Okay. So Janice, I think we maybe can look to you to see if there's some questions that need answering.
So there were not a lot of questions, but but there were a lot of comments. But someone was asking, is there public information about average pricing for recyclable materials? For example, like the cost to dispose and selling price for recycling, and they want more than the blended average. So I'm just wondering, is there public information about that stuff?
Well, I'll tell you what I found out recently. Recyclingmarkets.net. If you go to that website, it's a periodical that you need to get a subscription for, but they do. I got a free 24-hour subscription recently when I wanted to answer that question for one of my communities. What was the most up-to-date pricing? So that is a good place to start. Maybe some others of you, I think Cal Recycle also posts. And if any of you get newsletters or members of the Northeast Resource Recycling Association, they do, I think, a composite pricing in their newsletter.
Somebody did put the NERC.org web address in the comments.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
A couple of people, just FYI, if people want to look through the comments, some people posted some transcripts to an NPR program about how the responsibility for reducing waste was shifted from the producer to the consumer. Some people want to know if this presentation will be posted. Yes, we are recording this and all the other webinars this week, and we will be sending out one email with a link to all of those presentations probably next week. And then anybody who was registered for this webinar will also get that, and I'm not sure if we'll also send the slides. I guess, Sharon, that's a question for you.
Yeah, I think the slides and the recording will be shared. Well, that's what I announced at the beginning. That was the plan.
Yep. Okay. Then there were some questions about, well, there was a question about like, how come my city or town says one thing and MassDEP says another thing about the recyclability of, for example, Tetra Pak?
So actually, this is if you live in Western Mass, am I correct, Veronique or Janice? You may be able to, you can recycle Tetra Pak. So if your recycling goes to the Springfield MRF, I think they're about, please Veronique or whoever weigh in, 70 plus communities who send their dual stream material there, they are able to recycle cartons. So, but if your recycling is not going there, they cannot.
Correct. So if you go to the Recyclopedia and you type in carton or Tetra Pak, you would get a list of communities where that we know of where you would be able to recycle those things, but the vast majority would be a no. If your community is saying yes, we would ask you to get them in touch with MassDEP so we can talk about syncing up their list to make it correct. Because as Sharon mentioned, we did talk to the MRFs. They told us what they can recycle, and cartons were removed from the list, unfortunately. Just going through here. Yeah, Veronique says Western Mass does recycle milk, juice cartons, etc. at the Springfield MRF, and she gives the link to the Springfield MRF.
And I just want to repeat that these are not single stream collections. So if your community has single stream, it's not going to the Springfield MRF. And single stream means, what single stream means is that you're putting your bottles, jars, jugs, tubs together in the same container, or they can be in the same container with all your newspapers, magazines, cardboard. So your containers and your fiber can be in one. That's a single stream collection, as opposed to a dual stream, which would be all the paper products would be separate from the containers. And then there are those communities that might do what they call source separated collection. So they might have glass separated from plastic, separated from tin cans, separated from cardboard and paper. You would know that better than me, certainly. But the single stream, I think we can safely say that there are no other nuanced material that deviates from Recycle Smart.
I have a question I think that might be helpful for the group to crowdsource some information. She wants to know what do people use to pick up their dog poo? She's currently hoarding plastic bags and other random bags, but now she feels like she's gonna need to purchase some bags and she doesn't want to. So can anybody write anything in the chat to help this dog owner out? I'll let the crowd help with that because I don't have a dog. I use all my plastic bags for cat stuff. So somebody said my house uses casserole dishes. We have all sizes instead of plastic wrap or sandwich bags, which I thought was, good for your conversation about eliminating waste.
Yeah, we use Pyrex dishes with covers. It's just I don't know. Yeah. There are a couple of items where Earl hasn't exactly caved yet. We're working on it. Thank you.
So somebody asked about compostable bags, and I wonder if you would speak to compostable bags versus other things, Sharon.
Yeah, so if you are compostable bags, if your food waste, if you're putting your food waste into a compostable bag that is ASTM certified, 6400 certified compostable, and your compost facility says that they can compost them, you can use them. So the best source, again, if you are composting your food waste, is where is it going? If it's not going in your backyard, if it's going in your backyard, it should not be in a compostable bag. If it is going to an industrial compost facility or even an anaerobic digester, you really need to ask your municipal program what the guidance is. The city of Cambridge, their food waste it goes to a depackager first. So if food is in packaging, it actually gets depackaged, and it gets slurried, and then it goes to an anaerobic digester. But there are some land-based compost facilities that are challenged by compostable bags and compostable food serviceware. So you really need to ask them. My particular I use compostable bags for my food waste. I'm not going to say the name of who we use. Just don't think that's fair. But they say that they don't have any problems with them. They say they turn their piles more often. So I'm just going on that information for myself personally.
So there was a question about compostable bags relative to food storage, but then there's also now a conversation about compostable and biodegradable bags for dog waste. And do you want to speak to that? Because we should not be putting dog waste in the compost.
Correct.
So I just want to make that clear. And compostable bags do not compost. They don't break down in a landfill. And if they go to an incinerator where most of our trash goes, they just get burned up. So I'm not sure if there's an environmental impact for buying compostable versus or using a plastic bag for poo. Sharon, do you know?
So I don't have any pets, but I mean, so I don't think that this will go over too well with this group if you have pets, but what if you were to put it into a reusable container and bury it in your yard?
Yeah, somebody did say that they use a scooper and then they just throw it into the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess don't do it on the trail.
Please.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone else has a better answer than I do.
And then Julia says the compostable bags probably burn cleaner in the waste to energy plant. So yeah, and then somebody says that the poo in the can harm other wildlife. So I guess the message that I would want to send to people is, if you are composting food and you are using a compostable bag and your compost company says it's okay, then that's great. But don't buy a compostable bag thinking that it will be composted in the landfill, because it's without oxygen, it will not decompose. So it really takes an industrial composting facility to break them down.
Mm-hmm. You know, this always, I think, should have been better prepared for this question, because usually somebody who has a pet, you know, raises this issue. So I am hoping that you got some good answers there. Looked like there were some really great responses in the chat that you might refer to as well.
Somebody wanted to know, and this is a question for Todd, if the if for the recording, if the chat will be saved, or if people can refer back to the chat when they go through the recording. I don't know how that works. My guess is no.
When we post the video, it's going to be of the presentation. We could try to capture the chat, although it is a little garbled. I'd have to work on it, and we could push that out through an email.
That'd be great if it's not killer work.
Is there any plan to take food waste and create animal feed like they have done in Japan? We do have pig farms.
Right. So I think I mentioned that there are a number of farms that take back food waste for animal feed, and so there are 6 that take it back for animal feed. Am I answering this question correctly? Maybe not. And then another 26 farms that take back food waste for animal feed and or composting. Is that Christian's? Did I answer that question correctly? Or did I address the question? I don't know if I answered it correctly, but did I address the question?
I think you addressed it as well as we can. It says maybe just the links posted in the chat could be sent out. Okay, so I have put in a file, a Word document, which I will do again, that has all of the links that Sharon referred to in her presentation. So I think I'm doing that again. Did it go?
Yeah, it says that
so hopefully you can all see that. Some links have been shared in the chat. Yes, so we can try to put the links that we can, that's a good, thank you for mentioning that. So what we can do is when we send out the email with the presentation and like where it's gonna live in its recorded state, we could just add the links that were in the chat to the link document that Sharon already created. We'll just,
Janice, I think all the links that you may have posted are in that document, and then other links are also in the presentation. Where there's some
links that the people that
the okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
I think that's all. There's a lot of good chatter going on, but I think they're like responding to each other.
Okay, and Christian's just posted something for dog waste, and I think we're ending on time, which is fantastic. I really appreciate your attention. I really encourage you to go to your municipal website, and if you don't have a link to Recycle Smart, find out why. I think this will be great. You can also become a partner. Individuals can become partners, and you'll get the monthly newsletter. and great posts, and all of this information is meant to be shared and used. So it was great. Thanks for turning out today. And again, it was really fantastic. Thank you. And thanks to my team. Bye, everybody.